Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'll let everybody start getting signed in here, and we'll go get going in here in just a minute. But going to be talking about estimating repairs today. And last time we did an estimating repair workshop was back in 2020. I didn't realize it had been so long. And just kind of with the theme of some of the workshops we've been doing this year, I'm really trying to get you guys going and giving you some great education on what you need to do to go out and negotiate with your sellers, walking properties, all the different things, running comps, finding leads. This is just another continuation of that. I'm going to go through a lot of things that I do in estimating repairs. We're going to talk about how I learned how to do some of this stuff. And I'm also going to teach you some methods that are quite easy for you to go out and get some pretty accurate numbers. And you'll see what I mean as we go through this today. And we'll just have a good time, trying to teach you some good education. Be sure and, write down your questions and send them in to Angie. And I'll be happy to answer questions at the end. And we'll see what's happening. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. So estimating repairs, like we've been talking about, this is something that's really, really important that we learn how to do as real estate investors. If we're realtors and we work with investors, this can be very helpful for you. And as you'll see when I get towards the end of this, when we start talking about our buyers we work with out there, or who our clients are, these things can be very beneficial and help all of us to get deals done and be accurate on our numbers, because that's what is so important in this business, that we're accurate with our numbers. And because the numbers will make us or break us, and we want to make sure that we're coming out on a positive side of a deal and not on a negative side and losing money. I see that happen all too often because people don't follow some of these simple steps. So with that being said, let's kind of get going here. So do you have the tools for estimating repairs? Now, this is something that I talk about, the different tools I carry with me when I'm going out and looking at a property. And I've always talked many times about my little packets that I put together and take with me. And my little packets consist of, we use Podio for our CRM. And so on my very top cover page of anytime I'm going out is my Podio, my CRM. And that gives me all the information that I know about the property and the seller at that given time. That's from the first initial phone call that comes in to me probably calling them back and talking to them some more, setting that appointment. So we're going to put all those notes in there. We're going to have information about the property, just from stuff we pulled up on HCAT if it's Harris County. So I have my CRM. Then I'm behind that, I have my my CAD. So if it's Harris County, I'm going to have HCAD, all my information there. Then behind that, I'm going to have my comps, and I'm generally get a picture, Google Maps picture of the property, so I know what the house looks like when I'm driving up, and make sure I pull up in front of the right house, because I have knocked on the wrong door before. And so that's just kind of what I do. And then we're going to go into additional things that we need to have with us as we go out to a property and building our toolkit for us to go out there and make us effective when we're out at a property. And so we're going to cover a lot of ground here today, and just those are some things that I think are very important that we have in our hands right out of the gate. A lot of times over the years, I've gone out with many students, many Wealth Club members to look at properties, and I make that little packet, and I just kind of hold that thing back, and I'll get out and whoever I'm out there with, who is, they're the one that made contact with the seller, they've got nothing in their hands. And so, by having these things in your hands, first off, you look like you're a professional and you know what you're doing. It builds credibility for you. And so that's very important, I think, to go through that and do that. So I just always want to talk about that right out of the gate. So, how what do we have when we take go to that property and have in our hand. And for most of us, we don't have a contractor standing by to go and look at our properties at the drop of a hat. Sometimes it works out where you've got a contractor that you can get over to look at a property with you, or you set an appointment so a contractor can get over there and look at the property with you. But really, for the most part, that's not realistic, especially if you're looking at a lot of properties. And over the years, I mean, I've walked thousands and thousands of properties. And so it'd be very difficult for me to try and schedule that stuff. So I had to learn how to do a lot of this stuff through my mentors and through other investors and just, trial and error. And so, we're going to be talking about a lot of that good stuff today. And just, it's just stuff to help you. And, I get from most people when I'm talking about this, estimating repairs is a huge thing that people, are always, telling me, I'm afraid to go out to that property because I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm just going to be making a big guess of what I think needs to be done to this house, and I have no idea how much anything costs. So we're going to start going through that and try and give you some ideas of how to figure out cost, ways to go about learning about cost, and then some other methods that can help you as well. So property inspection summary is something that I think is very, very important that we build. And we're going to go into mine here in just a minute. But we build a estimating repair sheet, which we've carried for years with us, that I take to every property. So I told you about my little packet that I have with me, and then I usually have my estimating repair sheet on top of that. And so as we go through this, you'll see how I do that. But when we're building a repair sheet and we're trying to figure out cost, the best way that we're going to do this is by meeting contractors, going and talking to contractors, walking around your house, your own personal house, and just write down a bunch of things in your house. If I had to paint this house, how much would it cost? If I had to replace the cabinets, how much would it cost? If I had to remodel a bathroom, how much would it cost? If I had to buy light fixtures, how much would it cost? And so you just make a list of this stuff and that you can give to a contractor, because the contractor is not just going to give you a blanket pricing probably. But if you give them something to price, then they're going to give you back numbers. And then you can break it down. Is this contractor giving me just labor? Are they giving me labor and materials? And you can start putting together prices before you ever go to a property. And you kind of have this in your head, and you'll see more in detail in a minute what I'm talking about. But this is very, very helpful. These are things that we did in the beginning. As we started talking to contractors, we went to Home Depot, we went to Lowe's, and we started pricing materials, just going out and pricing materials. Now, in the beginning, when I started pricing materials, I did it much differently as I started learning, because when we go to Home Depot, we go to Lowe's, they have all of the contractor packages of materials in just about every department. So lighting department, we always buy the contractor packages of ceiling fans, chandeliers, dome lights, all that kind of stuff. And you're going to get a decent quality for generally for the types of properties that we're rehabbing, properties that fall in the 150 to, let's say, 250 ARV range, even up to 300 ARV. We can use most of these contractor packages at Lowe's and Home Depot all day long, and it's going to save us money. We can budget that very, very easily. And so I encourage you to go out and do that. Depending on, there's all kinds of flooring can go all over the board. Some of these things, materials can go a lot of places in price, but that's when we have to decide what we're putting in this property and based on our numbers, break that down and figure out what the price point is, and then go look at the materials in that price point. So this is how we started in the very beginning. Susan and I, on weekends and stuff, we'd do this, and she'd just go, oh God, we got to go there again and do that. But it was very helpful and helped us learn numbers, this is all about. This is all about the numbers. So that was really, really important. And I think it's a really good exercise that we go and do that. It's very helpful to you, and it's going to benefit you tremendously. So here's our estimating worksheet. So this is one that we've been using this worksheet for, years and years. And I will say, my disclaimer on this worksheet right now is, because of prices being so crazy and changing constantly, most of my numbers in this probably are not relevant, but I know enough, been doing it long enough to where I can put my own numbers in without looking at that. So you just have to be careful, as you build this. But as you make this, you make it simple, make it very understandable for yourself. So at the top, I've got the property address, I've got the date I'm looking at the property. Then I've got bedrooms, bathrooms, garage, square foot. Just write all that stuff in, write that information in. So you have that in front of you as you're walking the property. Then, like I said, you start with your house, and then as you go out and start looking at properties, you'll add things to your list as you learn and come across different items. But we put the common items on here. Roofs, gutters, we don't mess with a ton. Most of the time, we take gutters off and don't replace them just because of the cost. Siding, exterior paint, windows, garage doors. Oh gosh, we replaced tons of garage doors and garage door openers. It's a very common thing that we do. But it's also one of those things that the price has increased tremendously over the past 12 months on a lot of these things. HVAC, find an HVAC guy and get some pricing from them. But what's very important is we're talking to contractors that are investor friendly. We're not talking to our retail contractors because their prices will be extremely high. They'll be much higher than our investor friendly contractors. So I just throw that out there to you as well. Plumbing on a house, if you got to redo plumbing under a foundation, what's the general cost of that? I can tell you that the last one I did was very recently, just a couple months ago. We had to redo the plumbing under a house. It cost me $6,000. Now I've also got quotes for $12,000 on that same job, but I discarded that very quickly because I knew that was a very inflated price. Electrical, we're changing electrical panels all the time. The electrical panel is going to cost you between $1,200 and $1,500. But if you're rewiring a house, it's going to cost a lot more. That could be between $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000 sometimes, depending on the size of the house. So as you build this out and you just start talking to different contractors, you give them the scenario and they're going to help you put the right numbers in there. And I would talk to more than one contractor because you're going to get different prices, and then you want to take an average of those prices, especially at this level of going out and looking at a property. We're not necessarily going to have the exact number what it's going to cost to rehab that house, but we're going to have a very good idea. We're going to have a very close number using this method, using this chart that I have used many, many times for many, many years. I can do this, and then when I get my contractor over there after we close on the property, and he gives me his final number, we're usually within a couple $1,000 high or low, and I'm good with that every day of the week. So I encourage that. Like I said, we have a lot of stuff on here. The more you have on there, the easier it is for you to go through. And as you're walking that property and building that rapport with your sellers, you're just checking off boxes. Yes, no, maybe. And then you can put all the numbers on the left-hand side when you get done doing that, whether you're doing that there at the property and going to write a contract and make an offer right then, or whether you're going to take it back to your office and then give make your offer at a later date, the next day or that night or in the next hour, whatever the case may be. And we do it differently depending on the situation with the seller and the property that we're at. But I will tell you that I have found over the years that I give less offers at the property at that very moment. Most of the time I come back to my seller and within an hour or two with an offer. But that's a whole other class in learning personalities and doing what the seller wants you to do and kind of following that whole routine. Which I've talked about in mastering your walkthrough, reading personalities. So, but this is also a key part. And so, but most of the time I don't make my offer right then and there on the spot. I want them to see that I'm thinking about this, that I'm really analyzing the numbers. And by all the other processes I go through, most of my sellers are very happy with that. And if I've got other people coming out to look at the property after me, I will never give a number at that moment. unless I think I can get that deal locked up right then and there, which in most cases doesn't happen. So unless you're going to throw out some high stupid number that doesn't make sense anyhow, and we don't want to do that. But very helpful. Using that estimating repair sheet just has been very, very helpful for us, and I encourage putting something like that together. So repairs we need to account for almost every time. So when we have our repair sheet there, there's things that we know that we're going to have to do that we can already have on there before we ever get to the property. So some of the repairs that are going to happen every time, we're going to paint the inside of the house. I can only think of maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 properties in the past 10 years that we did not have to paint the inside of the house. So this is a number you can already have down on there on your estimating repair sheet. So, you know, it saves you time as you're walking around, filling out your repair sheet and building more rapport with your sellers. We change floors out just about every house. I mean, floors are a very, very common thing that we're going to change. If we got a house that's got carpet in it, carpet's the first thing that goes. We never put carpet in a house. I won't say never because that's very incorrect, because sometimes we do put carpet back in bedrooms, but it's rare when we put, you know, carpet back. So we know that we're going to have that cost, and depending on, you know, how old if it's tile floors, is it old, outdated, is it ugly, is tile broken? You know, we know that we're going to have these issues. So then if you already know a range of what it's going to cost you to put a floor in, is it going to cost you, you know, $4 a foot, $4.50 a foot, $4.25 a foot? Then all you need is the square footage of the house, and you can figure that number very, very quickly, and then add, you know, 5-10% for scrap. And you know, these are things that are real easy for you to figure out ahead of time. And it makes you look a whole lot smarter when you start to learn how to talk the talk, and you're in there walking in the house and going, yeah, we're going to have to replace this floor. We've got this many square feet. Yeah, it's going to be around this price to do that. And you can have that conversation with your seller. And it builds your credibility up tremendously. And another thing that we replace just about all the time is countertop. Gosh, I can't tell you, we replace countertops all the time. So, you know, these are just a few items, and there's other items that we change out. You know, we know we're probably going to change light fixtures and things like that. So you can have all this stuff already done. You know, if you've listened well to your seller in your first conversation, you've got some good information from them, built some good rapport, and they've kind of thrown some of this stuff out to you as you're talking about the condition of the property. Then, you know, if you're making good notes, then you can be prepared when you get there to meet with the seller. So this is the next thing that is really, really important. And you don't necessarily do this in the beginning when you're meeting with the seller, but your scope of work is going to be key to making sure you get the right repairs down, you get the right repairs documented for your contractor. And this is where we really get into a lot of detail. This is where we're really going to define that number as we, you know, at the end of the deal, or when our contractor comes back. Scope of work is going to be crucial in that. And, you know, so we've developed a very simple scope of work, you know, date, company name. And the reason we put the company is because we have a number of companies that do different things, and we buy properties in different company names. So this is why we put this up here for us. If you've just got, you know, one LLC and you're just doing it on that, then this may not be as big a deal. But this helps us keep track of what project is going on under what company. And then obviously the property address, the contractor we're using, and then a job summary. So I give a description of what the overall is for the property, and then I put down each individual room. And this is where you want to be very detailed. So, you know, when you go in the living room, you want to write everything that you're going to do or that you want done in that living room. Kitchen, same thing. I mean, put it in detail. The more detail, the better, because when this is something you're going to give to your contractor when it's time to do the work. And if you don't have something on there and they don't do it, they're going to come back to this every time, and it'll be on you. And a very good example is we assume things sometimes that we shouldn't assume. and I'm very guilty of this, and this is why I'm saying be so detailed, because I've had this happen to me before. But good example would be we change out outlets and light switches a lot. In just about every property, we change that stuff out often. Well, what comes with that when you change out the outlet and you change out the switch? You've got to put the covers back on it, right? Well, you better have the covers documented in here, because I have had contractors come back to me and say, yeah, I go into the house, I'm going, why don't you have the covers on these things? You didn't put it in your scope of work. You don't have it down. So be sure and be detailed about that kind of stuff, because like I said, I've had it happen to me, and you don't want it to happen to you. So it's very important that you get very detailed. And so, I go through each room with my scope of work. And then when I get to, electrical and plumbing, we'll just use that as the example here. I go back and I put in there, like electrical, I'll go in each room and, change all the outlets, change all the switches, replace covers in the 3 bedrooms. Let's say you say 3-bedroom. And I detail that out. I'm also going to detail that out under my electrical, that is done, because we might be adding, maybe we're going to replace the panel as well. So I'll put, replace outlets and switches with covers in all rooms on the inside of the house, period. Replace electrical panel, period. Replace lights, period. Even though it's going to be under each individual room, I'm also going to put it in here. You're covering yourself when you do that. One of the things that one of my biggest pet peeves, and let's go to the living room, for example, we change locks on every house. The door locks are getting changed on every house, but you better specify that you want to make sure that your contractor is using the same key for every single lock. Nothing makes me madder when my contractor, when I go to my lock box to get the keys out and it's just full of keys, and I've got a front door, a back door, and a garage door, and I've got a different key for each door. That drives me crazy. I tell my guys, if you want to get your final paycheck, and of course my guys know me now, that is, I can't stand that. That's just one of my things. So, but you have to specify, change doors, door locks, front door, back door, garage door, with all the same key, or however, all the same lock, however you want to put it. Be specific, and you eliminate a lot of problems as well. And I know that we're doing this after we're estimating our repairs, but this goes hand in hand with estimating our repairs. That's why I think it's very important that we know about our scope of work, and we know that how important it is to be detailed with our scope of work, because like I said, I've had things bite me in the butt because I didn't put it in there. And also another phrase that I use, depending on my contractors, and of course, like I said, I've got the same guys I've used for years now, but sometimes if it's replace all light fixtures in this room or as needed, sometimes I'll put that in there as well as a phrase. So if they come back to me and I say, why did you change that? And they say, you didn't have that on the scope of work. I said, it said and or needed. That was needed, and you didn't do it, and you gave me this price, so get it done. So just some helpful tips and hints that will help protect you, especially on the cost of your rehab, because the money is everything. Cost is everything. So and then also on here, I mean, you can go back in and put your numbers down here. This is something that we did. Actually, we originally did this because we had one private lender that wanted to see how we broke down our numbers. Only ever had one private lender that wanted to do that, but he was a great guy and a great lender, and so I was happy to do this for him. And it gave him a very good comfort level, and because of it, we were able to do lots and lots of business with him. So this is something that I think is very beneficial and has helped us. And if you want to do it or not, it's not a bad idea. It's always, it helps you keep track of your numbers as well, which is very, very important, keeping track of your numbers through the project. Okay, so let's go back into different levels of repairs. So how do we determine what repairs need to be done? This is a question I get all the time. And this is also something I see people either over rehab a property or under rehab a property. And if we don't know how to determine the repairs that need to be done, this is going to happen. And I would say for the most part, I see more houses under rehabbed than I see over rehabbed. So we want to make sure that when we're running our comps, when we're running our comps, it's very important that we're going in and looking at the pictures of our comps. So for example, if I'm running my comps, I'm going to pull 3 properties that match up with my target property the best that I can. And I'm going to go in and look at them. What has been done on those properties? Is this if it's a neighborhood where they're doing a lot of flips in there, then it's going to be obvious, and you're going to see that everybody's doing nice granite countertops, nice appliances. You're setting the bar for what you're going to have to do in that property, and then figuring out what that number is associated with doing that. If this is a rental neighborhood, you can determine that by looking at rental comps as well, and that will help you determine that if there's lots of rental comps in there. For myself, I'm for most neighborhoods, because I know so many neighborhoods in this town, I know a lot of rental neighborhoods compared to rehab neighborhoods, because we've done properties in so many neighborhoods, and because we have a large amount of rental properties, and just because I've gone out and studied neighborhoods over the years and learned neighborhoods that we work in, I have a pretty good idea when I get the property address. When I look at the neighborhood, I'm going to go, oh, that's I'd love to have some more rental properties over there, or that's not going to probably work as rental property. It's probably going to need to be a rehab. But by going in and looking at what has sold on our comps, it's really going to help us identify that. And I also look at my active listings. The two things I look at, the comps are my sold or everything. That's what we're going to determine our numbers off of. But I want to look at my active properties, because when we get this property finished, that potentially is our competition. So we need to see what the competition is going to be, because it might determine how we do a rehab as we're going through that property, and as we're figuring out what our exit strategy is. And so we'll talk a little bit more about exit strategies here in a minute as we get going through this. But drink of water. So it's very, like I say, and when I'm running my comps, looking at the pictures of the properties, it doesn't take me but a minute to do this. This isn't like I'm taking tons of times and I'm not examining all the pictures. I can click through the pictures very quickly and go, okay, kitchen's been rehabbed, bathroom's been rehabbed, flooring's done, new paint, new light fixtures. It doesn't take long at all. I generally don't go through all the pictures. I go through, the first 4, 5, or 6, and I know what kind of a property that is. And I also know what kind of rehabs we do. And I'm going, yeah, we're going to match that or beat it without, hands down, without a problem. So, but it's important to help you do that. And it's going to help you tremendously in making sure that you're not over rehabbing, and under rehabbing. And like I say all the time, this is a business. We're never going to live in this property. This is not a personal home. So we have to think of it as a business, not as we're rehabbing our personal house. That's the first thing that gets us in trouble. And that's when we over rehab houses. That's when I see the most houses over rehab, because that's the thought process and what's going on. And we got to get away from all that. So looking at a property and knowing the repairs that should be done. So when you're looking at a property, how do you decide what kind of floors you're going to use, and how is that going to affect the cost? In my opinion, there's lots and lots of misconception out there about different types of materials costing drastically more than the reality of what they really cost. And we'll use floors, like I say, if we'll use floors for a good example here. We determine a lot of the materials we're going to use based on what the exit strategy is with the property, and I think that's very helpful, along with looking at our comps. But that's not always 100% the case. So if we're going to rehab that property, I'm probably going to be bringing in laminate floors opposed to vinyl plank. we're probably going to be putting tile in the wet areas. So that's going to be the kitchen and the bathrooms. Maybe an entryway, depending on how the house lays out. But if I'm going to do this, let's say I'm going to keep it property as a rental property. Sometimes, depending on the property, we'll just put vinyl plank throughout the house. We'll put it vinyl plank in the living rooms. We'll put it in the wet areas, the bathrooms, the kitchen, and in the entryway. Now, is this going to affect my cost? It's really going to be very close to if I was going to do laminate and tile. I mean, we might be saying sometimes, depending on, now I'll throw the disclaimer out there, it depends on the price point of the property we're rehabbing, because obviously the higher end we're rehabbing, then the material cost will change, because we're going to go with higher end materials. We're going to be using much nicer materials because of price point. But in the price point of properties that we do most of our work, 150 to 250, this we can go back and forth and use a lot of the different materials, where our cost is going to be a wash most of the time. But our perception is costs are going to be way higher if we use that, or way higher if we use that. Now, it will be a lot less if we just put carpet in there, but then you're going to have a hard time probably selling that property if you're going to flip it. If it's a rental property, after that tenant moves out, you're going to have to replace the carpet again. And after that tenant moves out, you're going to have to replace the carpet again. So I've recommended all rental properties never put carpet. But we use vinyl plank a lot. Vinyl plank has come a long way. There's some great material out there. We get all that stuff from Floor and Decor. I believe we use Duraflux vinyl plank, and it's great. We like it a lot. And we've actually put that in flips that we've done as well, because it does look like wood floor. Looks like laminate floor. Looks very similar, but it's very durable. It's water resistant and everything. So sometimes we do put that in a house. As a matter of fact, we got one that we just sold, and we used vinyl plank but we did put tile in the wet areas in this house because it was a nicer rehab. And actually, it was under contract right now for like $240 or something like that. So there's my price point right there. $240 is the price point. We put vinyl plank in, tile in the kitchen and the bathrooms, and it looks fantastic. And our buyers absolutely love it. So, but my cost would have been very, very much the same, maybe a little bit less expensive had I used laminate flooring. But it would have been very close. It wouldn't have mattered one way or the other, really, and from a cost standpoint. How do we determine granite versus laminate on our countertops? Well, this is something that I don't get really wrapped up too much in anymore. And I will say that we put granite in just about every property, unless we get a property and let's say the kitchen countertops are laminate and they're in great shape and they don't need to be changed, then I probably won't change them. But most of the time we have to change that stuff, and we come back in with granite. And if we think about, if you want to go price granite versus laminate, go to Lowe's and Home Depot and go to the back where they have their prefabbed laminate countertops. Then go to the granite yard where they have their prefab granite pieces. They're basically the same size. And then compare your price, and you'll be amazed that the costs are very, very similar. And when you go to buy a stainless steel sink for a laminate countertop, and then go look at your undermount sinks for granite, a double undermount sink is like $60 or something, like $60-$70. So they're not that expensive. So you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you might be paying $150-$200 for some of those, especially if you want the deeper well ones. So it's very deceiving. Our minds throw us off on that. But laminate, granite's going to be the perception of granite. Everybody always likes better, even in a rental, because when we're bringing in new potential tenants and they see the granite countertops, it's a perception thing. They like it. And so my cost isn't that much different. We just go ahead and put granite in. And I also know that granite's going to be a lot more durable and hold up for a lot longer time than the potential of that laminate. They can damage the laminate countertop a lot easier by hitting it with something, dropping something heavy on it. and your granite should hold up a lot better in many cases. So and that's how I look at it. And I can tell you, we've got properties we bought for $35,000 that are rental properties, and put 20,000 into it, and they got granite countertops in it. And when the tenants come in and look at it, the perception is great, and we can generally get a tiny little bit more rent on that property, and we put tenants in them very easily. So that's kind of how I think of that. At the same time, when we're doing a rehab, the level of that rehab is going to affect the ARV of your property. So it's important that we're making these right decisions. And I'm going to get a higher ARV on my property when I'm putting granite in it than when I'm putting laminate in it, because that's what the appraiser's going. That's how the appraiser's going to look at it. So it's important that we're thinking about that stuff as we're going through our process and estimating the repairs and what materials we're going to use. This all goes hand in hand, and it's extremely beneficial to you as you're going through this process. So knowing your buyers. So are you wholesaling the property? Well, knowing your buyers, if you're wholesaling the property, is key. I talked a little bit about that last night on a podcast I was on. And, when we first started in this business and we were wholesalers, I got to know my buyers well. We created over time a very large email list that we could send all of our deals out to. And out of that big email list, I want to say we had about 15 or 16 good, solid buyers. So if we brought the deal, I knew I had a good pool of people that I could probably move this property to. But as we did that, I learned my buyers. What are you looking for? How are you financing the deal? What kind of rehab are you doing on the property? And then what's your price points? You want to find properties in this price point for the acquisition, and you generally want to spend this much for your rehab. So the smarter I got in estimating my repairs, as I'm looking at a house and walking a house, I'm going, if I get this deal under contract, man, I know exactly who I'm calling. This was super helpful for me, and especially in the earlier years. I mean, I had a great following of buyers, and I just kept supplying those properties to those same guys guys and gals. I'll say guys and gals. I kept supplying those same properties to them over and over and over again. It was phenomenal. Every time I'd bring them properties, they'd be, can you bring me 10 more? So by knowing how to estimate my repairs properly based on who my buyer was super, super helpful. But maybe you want to be the buyer. Maybe you're going to be the buyer. Maybe you want to keep that property as a rental property. Maybe you want to rehab that and flip that property. Very important that you know your numbers, so you're coming out on the winning side, not the losing side of that deal. Very, very important by learning these estimated repairs. And are you fixing it or flipping? Are you fixing it? I can't even talk. Sorry about that. Are you flipping it, or are you going to is it going to be a rental? Either way, I look at our rehabs. I look at estimating our repairs the same way. I don't change my repair, the way I look at my repairs, estimating repairs, whether I'm rehabbing it or flipping it. I look at both of them the same way, and then whatever my exit strategy is out of that deal, I'm still covering myself, and I'm still going to be able to do a very decent repair, whether we're flipping it or whether we're keeping it. And then I think I've already given you a bunch of reasons why I like doing that and thinking of it that way. Wholetailing. I know that I think that a lot of you probably are familiar with wholetailing, but maybe some of you are not familiar with that term. Don't know who made that term up, but we just go with it. So if we're going to wholesale a property, then first and foremost, we have to know that we've got to close on that property. This is just a step up higher than wholesaling that property. We cannot wholesale a property if we do not own it. We can get in a lot of trouble for that. And I made a few mistakes one of the first ones I tried doing that. So you want to make sure that you close on that property and own that property, then you can do whatever you want with it. So when we're wholetailing a property, you know, we're going to spend much less on a rehab. And sometimes we're not even going to do anything on a hotel situation. You know, we've spent, you know, probably as much as $6,000 or $7,000 on a hotel project, and you can even call that just a very minor rehab if you want, and you know, call it whatever you want. Doesn't matter. It's all kind of the same thing. But we're putting a lot less money into that deal typically in a hotel or prehab situation. We've had properties that we hoteled before that I just put a lockbox on the front door. We closed on it and I put a lockbox on the front door and turned around and listed it and sold it. So it can be a variety of things. But in a hotel situation, the way I typically look at that on my repairs is I look at what are the scary items. Is there any scary items that might need to be dealt with on that property? And that's how I'm going to base my decision on what we might spend on it or not. I'll give you a good example. We bought a property in A-Leaf. It's been probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe. And this property had right in the very front of the house on one corner, it had foundation problems. And it was very obvious foundation problem on that corner. So I called my foundation company and I said, hey guys, come out, give me a quote, look at this, tell me what we need. And it turns out we needed, I think, 10 piers just on the outside of the house. It cost me like $2,200. So we fixed that. Now we didn't fix the cracks on the inside, but we let everybody know, hey, we fixed this foundation problem. We've got a warranty for any of our buyers. But we didn't fix the inside of the house. We still had the cracks in the sheetrock. This property was god awful ugly in the colors and the paint. Had carpet throughout that was probably from the 80s, and it just was horrific. It was some weird red color. And you know, we talked about price point, like what we think we can get for this thing, and we threw it out there, and the phone blew up. And we had buyers coming over making us offers left and right, and we had and they were all investors because we had enough meat on the bone for us to make money and them still to make money doing whatever they wanted to do. We accepted a cash offer, and their thing was, can we close? We closed on that property like on a Saturday or on a Friday. Got the foundation company out there, took a couple days, listed that property, and accepted a contract like the next day. And so that was probably like on a Tuesday, and we closed on that Friday with these people. And they kept it as a rental property. They were investors. They wanted it as a rental property, and it worked perfect for them. But I had no problem putting that $2,000 out to fix that problem, because that was a scary thing to them. We took care of that. The cracks that needed to be fixed, the paint, the flooring, they wanted to fix all that stuff. So kind of think of it that way when we're hoteling a property. You know, in many cases, we're going to spend $5,000 or less. In most cases, like I said, we've had some properties where all we did was we closed. The next day we went over, put a sign in the yard, put a lockbox on the door, boom, we were done. Different levels of cleanup on a property we've done on many hotel deals. But we also have to keep in mind that when we're selling and doing a hotel deal, we're not trying to sell it at the top of the market. This property still has issues. And so we're going to be selling at the lower end of our market. We're going to be selling at the bottom end of our market. So we need to make sure our numbers still work doing that. You know, and in that one deal I just told you about with the property with the foundation, I think if we would have wholesaled that, we'd have probably made about a $10,000 assignment fee, which at that time, yeah, I'll take a $10,000 assignment fee all day long. But because we closed on it and hoteled it and had such a quick sale, I think we made like $28,000 on that property instead. So, you know, just taking that little extra time by closing on that property, being in and out of it as quick as we were, that's extremely fast to be in and out of it properly. You're usually not in and out of them that quick, but we were able to really, you know, enhance that, and that was you know, So we made it an additional, $15,000 or so, so that I'll take that all day long. I think any of you out there would. So just keep that in mind, when you're looking at your repairs as well. If you different exit strategies allow you to think of your repairs a little differently sometime. So estimating your repairs based on your exit strategy, like we're just talking. This property, if you want to owner finance the property, and we do a lot of owner finance with our properties as well. We love owner finance, but would you rehab the property differently if you're doing owner finance? Well, I can tell you there's lots of different philosophies out there about that. But I think a lot of those philosophies have changed over the years. And some of the guys I know that have been very popular in the owner finance world have put a lot of properties out there where they didn't do anything to them. Well, we fix the properties up no matter what. We've actually got a property right now that should be done by the end of the week, and that we're going to sell owner finance. So on this particular property, we did all the painting inside and out, redoing the floors, redoing the kitchen cabinets and countertop with granite. The bathroom was fine, just clean the bathroom up. But we had to put central HVAC system in this house. It just had window units. So actually I was down there yesterday and my AC guy is finishing up today on that. So we went, when we sell this owner finance, we want to try and find the best family we can. It's going to stay in there for the allotted time on our contract, on our terms. We believe in putting someone in a good house, no matter what we're doing, whether it's going to be a flip, whether it's going to be a rental property, whether we're selling it owner finance. We just, the way we are, the way we feel about it, we want to put our buyers in good, decent homes. And can they, after we sell it to them, can they improve that property more? Certainly they can. They own it. We're just the bank at that point, so they can do whatever they want to keep improving that property, and we hope they do. We hope they're enhancing that asset, so down the road, if we ever did have to take it back, we've got a better product than we gave them in the first place. So that's our philosophy on that. Yeah, I know, like I said, there's lots of different thoughts about that, and I know a lot of investors that do a lot of different ways. And everybody's free to do it however they want. I'm not here to judge anybody, but I'm just telling you, that's how we look at it and that's how we do it. So I'm going to go back to my estimating my repairs the exact same way. For all of our exit strategies, when we're looking at the repairs, we look at them the same way in every situation. We got another house we're working on right now, and I've got potentially my exit strategy on this property is we can flip this property. We can certainly flip it when we're done, but this one is a property, it's a unique property, and we might keep this one as a rental because of the uniqueness of this property. I might be able to get additional rent out of this property. And if we can do that, then we'll probably just keep it, refinance it out and keep it as a rental property. But it's still getting the same level of a rehab as any other rehab that we've done. When I went in and looked at the property the first time, my rehab budget is $45,000. And my rehab budget is staying at $45,000. I'm not going to change that regardless of whatever our exit strategy is. So if it's like I just mentioned, if you're going to flip the property, then you probably are looking at wanting to do a full rehab. This is something that we're going to do on all of our rehabs. If it's a full rehab, we're going to do it right out of the gate. If we're keeping the property as a rental, we just talked about, when we look at this any differently, a lot of people do. I don't personally, because I just think it's the right thing to do, and it makes me feel comfortable in how we do it. We're still staying in budget. It's not like we're going crazy on our budgets or anything like that. So it still works. And then, how do we estimate our repairs when we're wholesaling a property? So let's talk about another method of estimating our repairs that can be helpful. And this is what I did in the beginning as I was learning more and more about estimating my repairs correctly. Now, also understand in my corporate life, I also did a lot of estimating for our projects. So I understand the process of estimating, and for many years of doing it, just doing it for something different than on houses. But I knew how estimating worked. But when we were in the beginning, I was still nervous about it, just like anybody would be. And when we were wholesaling, I would use the square foot method to come up with my repairs. What I found was, as I got doing that and got learning how to do that, how close I was on my numbers when contractor would actually come back and give me the right number, the number for the repairs on that property, excuse me. So, but what you have to get good at and get to know is, okay, is this going to be a $20 a foot rehab? Is this going to be a $25 a foot rehab, or a $30 a foot rehab, maybe even a $35 a foot rehab? That's the key in looking at a property. And obviously, the more things that need to be done, like roof, HVAC, foundation, the big ticket items, then that number is going to go up. But if you start doing that when you're walking a property, and especially if you're newer at this, it's a method that will be quite helpful to you. And I will say that, I still see some people say, oh, it's only going to be a $10 a foot rehab. I haven't seen a $10 a foot rehab in years. I haven't seen a $15 a foot rehab in years. So unless that property is in a really, really good shape and you're just going to do some very minor things to it, you're probably, in most cases in the properties we look at, we're going to be starting that number about $20 a square foot. So, $20 a square foot, it's a 1,500 square foot house, multiply it, boom, that's your estimate. That's your repair estimate. Now, like I said before, is that going to be an exact number? No, it's not going to be an exact number, but it's giving you a very good number that's probably going to be pretty darn close. If you're putting that right number in there. Now, if you're putting a $20 a foot price in there and it's $35 a foot rehab, well, obviously your numbers are going to be off quite a bit. But that's the key, is learning, and by talking to contractors and people like that, you're going to get a good feel for what kind of a price range they're going to be in. Now, I'm very fortunate. Like I said, I've been working with my guys for, probably 4 years. We've been working together now, many, many, many projects. And I can walk in a house and I'm going to go, yeah, Jose's going to charge me 40, 45 on this one. And I know I'm going to be right there in the ballpark. Sometimes I'm a little bit high, sometimes I'm a little bit low, but it's still enough to where the deal's going to work. And if we need to, throw a little extra cash in the deal to get it done, it's not a big deal. We're not worried about that. We can still make that happen and make everything all good for everybody. So, thinking about that is really important, so that's a helpful tip for, especially if you're newer doing this. And, realtors, when you're looking at houses and you come across a house that's all beat up and you're trying to think of an investor that you might have, that can work on this, and you're kind of looking at those numbers and you're able to put those numbers together as well. And that's very helpful to your investor. And me as an investor, if you're coming to me with that, I'm going to be going, okay, hey, I've got, you're building that rapport with your buyers as well. It goes back to who are your buyers and knowing how your buyers work. And like I said, this was also something that I did when I wholesaled. I got to know all of my buyers very well. So when I was in a certain neighborhood, a certain area of town, certain type of property, as I'm walking it, I knew exactly who I was going to call. Generally before I got to the property, it's like, okay, if it lines up here, based on my conversation with the seller, based on whatever my repairs come out to be, I'm going to call this guy, or this guy. And it was so helpful, especially in the beginning. Very, very helpful to me. So, so let's talk about financing a little bit on deals. So obviously, if you're wholesaling a deal, then knowing how your buyers are financing their deals. This was very big for me, knowing how my buyers were financing the deals. So, are they bringing cash? I mean, I had one guy that was probably my best buyer of all time. We still talk to this day, and it's been years and years since I've wholesaled a deal. But it was him and his father were the team, and they brought cash every single time. And this was a guy where I knew his neighborhoods. I'd call him and say, hey, I've got this property right here. If it was vacant, here's lockbox code. He would leave whatever job he was on, come immediately over to that property. If he liked it, he'd call me and say, I'm taking it. He would go directly to my bank and put a deposit in my bank. And once we had clear title, he would close the next day, like clockwork. And if you got a buyer, they're using a hard money company. If they're using a private lender, they're using a hard money company. Who's the hard money company? Talking to the hard money company. How good of a buyer are they? Are they wishy-washy? Do they close a lot of deals? I used to find that information out, and that's how I built such good buyers. It was very, very helpful. So then the flip side of that is, if you're going to buy the deal and fix it and flip it, how are you getting your financing? Who are you going to be talking to? Are you talking to a hard money lender? Are you talking to someone like myself, a private lender? How are we doing that? Knowing this stuff in advance is very, very helpful. Knowing who's willing to lend you money based on whatever the criteria is that lender sets. We'll give you our criteria. This is what I'm going to be looking at. So you can match that up as you're looking at that property, as you're estimating those repairs. Knowing all this stuff in advance, very, very helpful to you. And then obviously, if it's a rental property and you're going to refinance it out for long-term financing, well, your rules are going to change a little bit more, and your lender is going to have requirements that you're going to have to meet for that property as well. Putting these things in place, knowing which direction you're going to go, already talking to people before you get there, I think is very, very important. And it also allows you to move very quickly when that deal comes up. And that's what we want. I mean, as investors, we want to move fast. We want to get the deal closed. We want to get our guys working on it as soon as possible, because every day it sits there, every day we're working on it, it's costing us money. So we want to make this stuff happen quickly. So these are some real key things that I think have always benefited and helped me tremendously. And if you put these things in play for yourself, then you're going to help yourself as well. And like I said, I've already thrown hints out there. If you need to talk to someone about financing, I'm sitting right here talking to you now, and we can help in that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of other people out there that can help just like we do. So very, very important to get tuned into this, and so you can help yourself. So guys, that's what we got here for you today about estimating repairs. And I hope that this has given you a lot of ideas and very much been able to help you and guide you in some good directions moving forward with whatever you're doing, whether you're wholesaling, flipping, on rental properties. These are very, very good guidelines in getting those repairs correct and putting other things in line that all fall in line with that. So as obvious, and I think most of you out there have all of our contact info, but we've got the Wealth Club, we've got SVSM Capital. Guys, if you're looking for funding for deals, we're putting money on the street right now, so we can certainly help you. If anybody that wants a copy of my private lender roadmap book, you can click on the QR code real quick and get that. And then, as always, our YouTube channel, SVSM Wealth. We've got lots of videos out there. We've got presentations out there. This one will go on there today after we're done. Let me click out of here real quick. Where am I at? Boom. I did it. Angie, do we have any questions?
I do not have any questions right now, but I will be including the worksheets in the replay email that goes out tomorrow as well.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Yeah, on the worksheets, all I can say is, my disclaimer is, some of those prices are not going to be accurate right now for what's going on out there. Prices have changed crazy. An example of prices changing, we changed doors out just about every property. And let's say a 32-inch 6-panel door, which we've been putting in for years, I think we were getting those for about $24-25 a door. And I think the last we paid was about $65 a door. Appliances have gone up. Appliances can be very difficult to get, or order in advance. Order your appliances out in advance if you have a place to store them. Don't leave them out at any properties. But yeah, just double check the pricing because things have changed a lot. Like I said, garage doors, my garage door guy, I mean, every time I go to have a garage door, it seems like he's going up $100 every time. And I know his cost is going up as well. So just be very aware of that. But all the items I have on there to look at, to get priced, use them. I mean, those are the common things that we're looking at all the time, and extremely helpful for you to go out and make that happen. So I thank everybody for joining today. And like I said, and you'll be putting this up on the replay and then putting it on our YouTube channel. And if you guys have any questions that you think of down the road, feel free to reach out, and more than happy to help you and answer any questions that we can. And until then, we'll see you again real soon. Oh, and next month, you might definitely want to get tuned in because we're bringing Burton with PropStream back, and he's going to be teaching about running comps off of PropStream. Be a great class. So until next time, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon.